I'm Mina Miller, founder and artistic director of Music of Remembrance, and it's quite thrilling to have with us today composer Jake Heggie. Jake, it's so wonderful to have you in Seattle. You've actually been with us for the full week as we've been preparing for recording for Look or a Touch and Intonation Songs from the Violins of Hope. Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm thrilled to be here with you again. It's a reunion.
It is a reunion. You know, our association goes back 15 years. And it's been a very special 15 years for all of us. For a very long time, we'd wanted to commission a work to address the question about the persecution of gays during the Holocaust. And we were thrilled when that subject resonated with you. And that's how it began.
Yes.
So tell us, how did you develop the concept of what would become For Look or a Touch?
Well, first of all, I was enormously flattered and challenged by the request. And I have to say, I did not know about the persecution of gays during the Holocaust. And that's one of the reasons you told me you wanted to create a piece to address it. And it was kind of surprising for me because I am a gay man and I know a lot about the Holocaust, but I didn't know these different aspects. And so when you invited me in, it was finding the right story. Initially, we had talked about just a song cycle.
That's right.
And quickly, we realized it was going to be something bigger than that. It had to have a theatrical element to it for storytelling, because there are so many stories. And I have to say, though, when I first did research, I looked for texts or poems or anything from during or after the war that might relate to the subject. Nothing. Even a decade or two after, nothing. And I was horrified to find out that after the war, it was still illegal to be gay in Germany. Paragraph 175 was still in effect. So, I mean, that was shocking, depressing, challenging. And that's when I realized we were going to need original texts to tell this. And so we brought in our wonderful friend, Jean Shear, and started doing research. And Jean was looking at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum on their website, and he went and visited, and he found Manfred Levin's journal, which is there, that had been donated by Gad Beck to the museum. And then I came across the documentary Paragraph 175, in which gay men and women now in their 80s are able to finally tell their stories. And we decided there has to be a way to weave these stories together to tell these very personal stories, but create a narrative line. And with Jean discovering Manfred's journal and the relation to Gad Beck, and Gad is interviewed in Paragraph 175, all of a sudden we thought, well, let's make that the core of it. And let's say, because Manfred did die with his entire family. They were murdered at Auschwitz, and Gad survived. So let's say Gad, our version of Gad Beck, is now an older man, and he's visited by the ghost of Manfred one night. And then they start sharing stories of what happened. And that was the thread of what would become For a Look or a Touch. And so we thought, well, do we have two singers? And then we thought we'd be bold, and let's have the ghost of Manfred, who only wants to be remembered and to remember the love and to set Gad free. He's the one who sings. And Gad, who has, in our version, been shut down for all these years, is an actor who speaks and only finds a thread of music at the very end. So those were the elements that came together. And then for the musical ensemble, because we wanted to capture the Berlin years, the golden years, all the fun, I wanted it to be like something that I could use as a jazz band and a combo, as well as find the musical threads that would tell the story and would be right for the piece. And so it became this ensemble of piano, violin, cello, flute, clarinet, which is very versatile. And of course, you brought in the very best players.
Oh, I can't say enough about our amazing players. And we've been fortunate that they have grown with us and been playing with us for 23 years.
Yeah.
And whenever there's an opportunity to play a work of yours, it's a winner. And I've even felt that when you write clarinet lines, that you have Laura DeLuca in mind, and violin lines, you have Misha Schmidt in mind.
Yeah, I definitely do now. And actually, Zart, Lori, and Misha were in the original, right?
Yes.
In 2007 when it premiered.
Yes.
And they're still playing it. Haven't scared them away yet.
That's right. Well, For Look or Touch has evolved in so many ways.
Yeah.
How has it grown and changed?
Well, from the original, the Seattle Men's Chorus got wind of it and asked me to expand it to create a version that included a larger combo with a bass and with percussion, as well as 200 voices from this tiny chamber piece. So, and for that, I figured we needed a number for just the chorus. So that's when I wrote 100,000
It's
Stars.
such a moving number, and it's such an intimate number.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when in your hands as a choral version, it's a magnificent number as well. It works in small microcosm. And
But it started life as the choral version, and then we realized, oh, it's so good, it has to go into the chamber version too. So now it's permanently in the score, whether it's the large or the small version. And then you invited me back to create another work based on the life of Krystyna Zawolska, Another Sunrise, and then songs based on her lyrics, which became Farewell Auschwitz, and then to create a full-length opera with those pieces combined for the first act and For a Look or a Touch in the second act. And so it's evolved and changed in many, many different ways. So it's wonderful to revisit the original as we conceived it with this production.
well, For Look or Touch, given that we did the premiere in 2007, it's been around quite a long time, even as just the dramatic, intimate version. So in these productions, MOR has done 4 of them, and companies around the world have done them as well. Are there ways that these productions have varied in the way they've portrayed the story or depicted the characters of Manfred and Gad and their relationship?
That's the wonderful thing about writing a theater piece, is that it's open to many different perspectives and ways of doing it. And I've always found if I do my job and I write the role well, and with Jean, of course, because Jean is integral to every part of this, Jean Shear, then there are many people who can inhabit the character and many ways to do it. And I've seen it done massive, big production, like with the Gay Men's Chorus in San Francisco and LA and in Boston, with the men's chorus here. And I've seen it done very intimately in various size halls. We took it to LA, of course, ages ago now, it feels.
2008.
But it just seems to work. It's and it's interesting to see different actors portray the role of Gad, different baritones inhabit Manfred, and they do bring a different energy, each one of them, to it. But that's one of the things I love as a composer, because I learn from great performers. I feel like I'm learning from these performers, from Jarrett and from Kurt, all these years later, and from what Eric Parse has done staging-wise and his wonderful team. I'm just riveted and feel like I'm experiencing it for the first time because it feels so authentic and true for these particular performers.
It's also impossible to predict when you start working with an ensemble and you have a new baritone, a new actor, just how that chemistry is going to work and how it's going to evolve. Is there anything that stands out from our production?
It's interesting because the productions that I've seen have mostly been a classically trained baritone in the role of Manfred, and then an opera singer who has since retired or moved on or is willing to expand in the role of Gad. And this time Kurt is first and foremost an actor, and so the relationship between Jarrett and Kurt somehow feels different from any time I've ever seen it, because Kurt, of course, is bringing his own authenticity as an actor to it, his own take on that person, his version of Gad Beck, and the same with Jarrett. But the chemistry that they've developed in these few short days has been very moving. And it's, again, I'm learning something from the piece that I never experienced, and different corners of it that are different this time than any other time I've witnessed it. I don't, is it the same for you?
It is. It's such a moving experience each time, and it's moving in a different way, but it gets to your gut. all the same. And these days have been really quite precious, especially having the privilege to watch it grow. That's something that not everyone has.
Right.
And that's the beauty of creating art. And I think it's so meaningful to all of us now, having been quarantined for more than a year, to be making music without masks and being able to really communicate physically. You know, I've been able to give you a hug after a year and a half. Writing music about the Holocaust is not exactly easy. And on this program, we have For Look or Touch and Intonation, Songs and Violins of Hope. It's quite a trajectory of music, of stories from the Holocaust. What challenges did that present to you?
Big challenges, and it's interesting that they're kind of bookends, because For a Look or Touch is the first piece that I wrote that was related to the Holocaust, and that was thanks to you. And Intonations is the most recent one that I composed. It premiered in January of 20, right before everything shut down. The thing is, you want to honor the source so much, but the best way to honor the source is to do something with the material. You know, we're not doing documentaries, we're not doing biographies, we're telling stories, and emotional authenticity is the most important part of that. So it's getting into the heart of the characters as they are speaking to me, into the heart of these stories that Gene has written out so eloquently and beautifully in both cases, because he did, of course, the text for Intonations as well. And they're all based on true stories, but we don't have scripts for those stories, so we have to invent an emotional architecture and world for that. And the challenge as a songwriter and a theater person is that they are neither totally theater pieces and neither totally songs. It's this hybrid where they're not just ballads, but we're getting history as well for the characters, for all of these different things, and we're going on a journey and creating a through line somehow. With the Violins of Hope, it was another project I didn't know about. These are violins that were played by Jews in the Holocaust or in camps of different kinds. And some of these instruments had a long history before the Holocaust. Some of them were great instruments, some of them klezmer instruments. They've all been restored in Israel by Amnon Weinstein and his son Avshi, and over the past few decades. And the very first one he opened up, and this is in the book about the Violins of Hope, the first one he opened up was filled with human ashes. And just starting there are powerful stories to be told. How did those ashes get in there? Whose ashes? You know? And as we were developing the idea for the piece, all of a sudden I thought, well, we need a singer as a storyteller. We need a solo violinist. And we have a quartet. What is the role of that singer? And I said, that singer is the voice of the violin. So we can have the violinist and watch how the violinist tells his story or her story. But we can also have the voice of the violin explaining the journey in that particular moment and what transformative event happens in that moment. And that became the conceit for the Violins of Hope piece. And again, a very special way of storytelling, chamber music, very, very challenging to write, you know, to honor the sources and also to create something that speaks universally and broadly and is very specific. It's very, very challenging, but an honor.
They are masterpieces,
Well,
and they touch everyone. And For Look or Touch is about the love between two men, but it touches everyone's heart, gay or straight. And basically, it's a profound meditation on memory itself.
All of it is about
and on
remembering.
the struggle we face in confronting our own ghosts of our past.
Embracing the past so that you are not, this is the thread in For a Look or a Touch. Until you embrace your past and acknowledge it, you're a kind of a prisoner in a different way. You never will be free. And I think that's part of Manfred's journey with Gad that night, is to set him free finally, because he's been shutting it down. He doesn't want to remember. It's too hard. And yet there was something beautiful there, you know, all those years ago. And to forget about it and shut it down would be wrong. And so Manfred, Gad only wants to forget. Manfred only wants to be remembered. And music of remembrance is you're the one who set me on that path. The word remember comes up a lot in intonations too, because it's urging people to remember. And Jean's wonderful line, when they told us not to pray, when they tell us to forget, we will play these violins. And that is about remembering. And so then we had this idea at the end, as a theatrical gesture, to have a young violinist step forward as the future and play one of the violins of hope, so that the violins will continue to sing. We will continue to hear those stories. We will not forget. And boy, that is something that we have to remind young people and generations to do all the time, because we see that it repeats again and again unless we tell the stories. So I thank you for the opportunity to tell these stories with these special pieces.
What you and Jean have accomplished is quite extraordinary, because you tell these stories with deep compassion that never descends to pathos or sentimentality. And you ask such difficult questions, painful, difficult questions, with, and you probe emotions with unflinching honesty. You both have rare gifts, and these works speak for them. Well, this has been quite a journey from 2006, taking on the first project, through 2020 with Intonations. How has it changed you as a person, as an artist?
It's encouraged me to take on projects that are difficult, to take on projects that terrify me a bit, so that I can learn too, and I don't just repeat myself. As an artist, I kind of live in fear of repeating myself. So to take on projects that are vastly different and are challenging, and to think to myself, I think I can do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this, which is why I'm glad I have great colleagues and teammates like you, like Jean Shear, like your wonderful performers, like this great family of Music of Remembrance, to help guide us through and to give us the strength to explore these difficult things. But I feel like it's opened me up in so many ways and given me a chance to explore character and journeys in a very deep, rich, meaningful way, and to find a powerful thread of remembrance through music that we can't, that doesn't speak quite the same in any other way, that works specifically well in this context. Very different from an opera, from a play, from a song, from a poem. This, what you have created, and the challenge of making it work under these circumstances and still be powerful and beautiful and moving and challenging all at the same time. It's been an amazing journey.
Well, we're so grateful that we started this journey and we're still on it.
Yes.
And these have been very, very meaningful years in so many ways, and we want to thank you.
Thank you. And what's next?
We hope that all of you enjoy the production which comes forward now. Thank you so much.